Chapter 24. Captivity Day 26. Sato Cho. Cho's arrival in the Erosha system had been the result of being scammed. Nobody here is homeless or jobless, and that is a problem. Job services are readily available to citizens of the Kulani Dominion. Many of those involve military service or being shipped off to one of the other 7 star systems controlled by the nation. If you're not a citizen, the simplest way out is to buy a ticket home, if you can afford it. If you and your family can't afford that, your prospects are limited and unpleasant. You could attempt to hitch a ride on a freighter, and risk being spaced if you're caught. There's a Gamaro Inc. facility on the southern continent that will house and feed you while you work on their assembly line. That region is seen as an independent corporate governance, and not officially part of the Kulani Dominion. You're paid almost nothing, and you're left to die on the streets if you don't work. If you're blessed with the right skills, look, attitude, and a healthy surplus of luck, you might find someone willing to sponsor you for a work permit. Cho had gotten extremely lucky, and she knew it. She was young, pretty, perky, in the right place at the right time, and desperate enough to try prostituting herself just to avoid the local authorities. She wandered up and down the street for hours, hoping to be propositioned by someone who would take her to some hotel room to at least get her off the streets for the night. If she could convince them to pay her for a screw, even better. While passing by Nim, she saw one of the kiddies storming outside and flinging their cat ear headband and uniform into the gutter, while yelling something about being sick of cleaning up cum. Cho had grabbed it once she was sure nobody was looking, hid her clothes, changed into the kitty dress, and headed inside. She pretended to work there. It at least got her off the street for the night. The girl at the front loaned her a belt with a tail, assuming Cho had forgotten hers. After a few hours, one of the security guards pulled her into a back office after watching her work the remainder of someone else's shift. The kitty she'd seen earlier had quit, and Cho was offered their position on the spot. They let her stay in a downstairs room while making her work 10-hour shifts until her first paycheck came in and helped her get set up with 2 other kitties who were sharing an apartment. Eventually, she managed to get her own place. It wasn't much, but it was hers. She'd worked as a kitty for years without anything changing, until she decided to enter an event at the club on her day off. Now she was a kitty with a side job delivering strawberries to a high-security cell, which housed the Cletherian Queen. The woman who owned the delivery business had offered Sato honorary Midnight Fellowship citizenship to protect her if she lost her primary job. The woman insisted on calling her by her family name. On top of all that, she was supposed to coordinate with a professional cyberpath, who wanted her to become his assistant, eventually. Life is boring, except when it's not. It would be nice if everything wasn't all happening at once, years' worth of change upturning her reality. All this because she was still pretty and perky, in the right place at the right time, and willing to spread her legs for the right person. That was just a day ago. No 2 days. Tyrell had insisted she start thinking in galactic standard days instead of local planetary time, but that would take a while to get used to. She hadn't been called to make any deliveries yet. She knew she was going to be paid by the job, and not all of the deliveries would be for Lady Darkseid. She wasn't about to risk her regular job until she had a feel for the new piecework job. Honestly, she enjoyed being a kitty. She'd probably keep her full-time job. Tonight had been rough. She actually had to get the security staff involved with a problem table with this obnoxious guy who kept stepping on her tail. She switched from the belt style years earlier because of this sort of behavior. The butt plug tails just pulled out, instead of dumping her onto the floor with her knees in the air. Proving it was intentional would get them kicked out, but it could be hard to prove. It felt like she spent half her night rushing off to the little kitty's room to wash, lube, and reinsert her tail. The kitty tail plugs were designed for prolonged use. Her tail plug was shorter, narrower, and more flexible than most, but after being yanked out so many times she felt pretty sore. She shot a quick message off to the delivery service just as her shift was ending, letting them know she had a hard day and wanted to bring strawberries to Lady Darkseid. They sent her a work order to make it official, followed by a warning not to make this a habit. Unfortunately, she'd have to pay for the strawberries herself. She could afford it without dipping into the extra credits from Tyrell. She thanked them and accepted her first official work order. She just needed a friend, and hoped Carly wouldn't mind. She took out her plug and took a long shower in the kitty room, carried her heels and tail with her to the counter, made sure to have the desk kitty add pictures of the problematic customers to the security watch list, and headed home. Her muscles ached. A few more shifts like that, and she'd need to spring for a massage. She rushed up the stairs to her apartment, eager to change out of her kitty uniform, and almost tripped over a box someone had left in front of her door. She could sense that there was an electronic device inside. She carried it inside with her, closing the door behind her. It contained a long cylindrical device with a rounded tip. It was mounted to a flat disc. "What are you?" Cho said while letting her mind explore the electronics within it. "You look like a dildo, but not with all that circuitry." "Here goes nothing," she said as she put it on the kitchen counter, and pressed a button on the base. A light swept through the room as a built-in speaker announced that it was scanning for an assortment of electronic monitoring device types. She changed into her delivery girl uniform while it conducted the scan. Once it concluded, it announced that there were no devices found. "I could have told you that," Cho snickered. "I'm pretty sure I'd feel it if there were any. Thanks, Tyrell, or whoever, but women like me always have an eye out for creepers. You'd understand if you'd ever been stalked." She left to pick up some strawberries to bring to Carly. Upon her arrival at the building where Lady Darkseid was being detained, the guards insisted she sit on the stairs and wait for someone to arrive, without providing any useful information. She thought simply showing them the box of strawberries and work order would be sufficient, but apparently not. Being held at gunpoint by 4 guards was pointless. She wasn't on the valid target list, and their weapons triggers didn't have an active bypass, but she wasn't a registered cyberpath, so she pretended she was playing a game with children and did her best to act intimidated. An expensive-looking car pulled into the adjoining lot. The guards stood at attention as a green-skinned, bulbous-eyed Shagar wearing a suit stepped out of the car, and walked over to where she was seated. "Hello, young lady," the Shagar said. "I'm Dr. Shugok. It's nice to make your acquaintance. I understand you're here to make a delivery to our patient." Patient. What was he up to? Cho had been scammed once, and had spent years listening to people lie to each other at masculinity. He clearly had some authority here. It would be safer to just play along. "I have a fresh strawberry delivery for Lady Darkseid," Cho said. "Is there an issue with the order form?" He picked up the paperwork and looked it over. Sato, he read the name listed on the form. "Everything seems to be in order, but that's part of my conundrum. This isn't your first time visiting the patient, is it?" "No, doctor," Cho replied. "This is a new side job that was recommended to me by a Pharisee named Ujaran. My regular job doesn't pay well, and I could use the extra credits." "How thoughtful," Shugok said in a compassionate voice. "How did you meet the patient and her nurse?" "It was at masculinity. I'm a kitty there. They invited me back with them. I wasn't told she was a patient. Honestly, I wasn't told much of anything." "You were, however, told she was Lady Darkseid," he said while narrowing his eyes. "Yes, so the core tenet of NIM is anonymity. I thought they had a role-playing kink. Was that incorrect?" Cho asked. "Lady Darkseid isn't real, never has been. They're just an urban legend," Shugok said. "The poor young woman in there is being treated for a severe mental illness, for which we have yet to find a suitable medication. When she's having psychotic episodes, she can become very dangerous, completely losing control of her knacks. We have to keep her confined to protect her and the general public. I think I understand, Cho said meekly. He sounded so convincing, but she knew better. Her new terminal and conversation with Tyrell was proof enough of that. She has good days and bad days. The rare occasions we allow her out in public, it's only when she's accompanied by a nurse who will sedate her if they suspect she's starting to have an episode. Okay. Which subspecies are you? Herisham, Cho answered. You left without someone properly lowering the protection field, Shugok said sternly. I'm telling you all this because I need you to understand how dangerous it would have been if she got out and had an episode. I didn't know. She seemed calm around me, Cho said. It won't happen again. See that it doesn't, Shugok said like a father scolding a child. Cho lowered her head, worried he'd see just how badly she wanted to punch him for lying like this. Can I complete my delivery? He looked at the guards and asked them a barrage of questions to confirm the supposed patient hadn't had any issues or incidents today. It should be safe, but do be careful. Her nurse isn't on duty right now. You know I was here, Cho said, so you know we fucked. I do, he said emotionlessly. I know where to touch her if she starts getting too excited. I learned that while Ujaran was fucking the two of us, Cho grinned. She was trying to get a reaction out of him, but Shugok remained stone-faced. The rest of the guards reacted noticeably. You said her nurse isn't here, so she's in there alone? Cho asked. With your permission, Dr. Shugok, can I sit with her until one of her caretakers arrives? I'll just rub the spot that soothes her if she starts acting odd. What spot would that be? Shugok inquired. While you reach between her legs with 2 fingers, and, forget I asked, Shugok said abruptly. She got a reaction that time. When is Ujaran scheduled to come on duty? The doctor asked. One of the guards looked at his tablet. Cho accessed it to make a quick adjustment to the displayed schedule. 70 minutes. Cho scolded herself mentally for screwing up the modification. Hopefully nobody would notice the discrepancy. Permission granted, Shugok said. If you have any problems, just yell for the guards. I'll instruct them to leave the door open a crack as a precaution. Cho fixed the time on that guard's tablet after he'd put it away. She'd changed it from 7 hours to 70 minutes instead of an hour and 10 minutes. She had no idea what they'd do locked in there for 7 hours. But her alternative was just another night spent scouring the net. Quality cuddling and nap sure sounded nice. Ujaran. The camera above the rear door to the playhouse panned from side to side. He waited until it was looking away and rushed to the side of the door, with his back flat against the wall. As the camera resumed its sweep of the back alley, he rapped his knuckles lightly against the side of the doorknob 3 times, paused, tapped it one more time, a little harder. He listened for the raspy sound of the door being unbarred. The door creaked open, a hand slid through, and pressed a data stick into his hand. From Azuri, with love, Ayeta said quietly through the door. I added something special from me and the girls. Our last show in this system is tomorrow night. I'll make sure there's a ticket reserved for you if you want to give me a proper send-off. Ujaran slid the data stick into his pocket. I'll try to make it. Her hand slid back inside. The door closed and the locking bar ground back into place. He waited for the camera to reach the furthest point of its track and swiftly make his escape. After making his way back to his car, he took out his tablet and reopened a conversation Azuri had started earlier in the day. Ujaran. I've got it. Now what? Azuri. Just make sure Lady Darkseid is with you when you watch the video. You'll understand when you see it. Ujaran. What about the photo? Azuri. What photo? He opened the file. It was the entire dance troupe, posing naked with the Arinaraks standing behind the Shea gargoyles, so it looked like they all had wings. Ayeta was standing in the middle with her arms held wide. It was professionally shot and would make a nice poster. Ujaran. Never mind. It's from Aeta. It's a nice picture of her with the whole troupe. Do you want a copy? Ajari. Your dim switch is malfunctioning again. I know you're brighter than this. Ujaran. What? It came out really nice. You should ask her who she hired to take the pictures. They have a good eye. Ajari. I'm getting a new red patch. Ujaran. Where? Can you send me a picture? Full body. Nude. Ajari. That's it, right there. Every time I start to worry where your eyes are wandering, you start counting my scales. Just like it's our first time. Ujaran. Always. Azure. Maybe this was my turn to be a bit dim. Ujaran. Never. Ajari. Get back to work. He closed the conversation, put away his tablet, and returned to his pre-dawn duty. Of all the normal tasks that needed to be performed, dock service and indigent patrol were his favorites. He liked feeling like he was making a difference. Throughout Corrales, tens of thousands of youths died in the vacuum of space every year just because they picked the wrong transport ship to sneak onto. Many of them were runaways. Indigent patrol was another matter entirely. Every government had their own laws to curb homelessness and extreme poverty. The Midnight Fellowship dealt with it through conscription, not usually into the military, but general government service. Every few months they'd switch them to a different role that allowed them to benefit society, until they found a good fit. Kulani was more of a caste-based society. Loyalty, proficiency, and artistry were as important as heritage. People moved up and down the rungs of society fairly frequently. Unfortunately, down was more common. Life on Erosha was intended for people who were higher in the social order and the most capable service people. The downside of such an orderly nation was that they weren't equipped to deal with people who weren't part of their national flowchart. You just couldn't move up or down without a starting position. The options available to people who got stuck in the well-tuned gears of the culture actually had more options than they realized, but there was no financial incentive to recommend visiting your local government embassy. Regular ships leave for the agricultural colonies, where people can earn the citizenship by stepping onto the first rung of societal ranking. The options were there, but you needed to know where to look. Working indigent patrol put him in a position to find people who may otherwise be shipped to the Gamaro corporate colony, and help them find a better option. Most of his peers didn't put in the extra effort, and would rather just get the kickback provided by Gamaro Inc. Unlike dock duty, indigent duty allowed him to wander around town and take extra breaks as long as he kept an eye open. His visit to Aeta was the only thing interesting to happen all shift. He was expected to keep Adiarc company after his shift was over. It wasn't right for her to be isolated all the time, but sometimes he missed sleeping in the barracks and spending time with his own people. Ujaran spotted someone staggering out of an alley. He pulled over and leaned out the window. "Hey, kid. Yeah, you. Come here," Ujaran called to them. "Don't make me chase after you." It was an adolescent Pharisine girl with dull grey scales. She didn't look healthy. There wasn't any shine to her scales at all, a clear sign of prolonged drug use. Most of the Pharisine in Kulani space were fellowship citizens, not local residents. After a brief conversation, she admitted she was a runaway and a minor. She seemed to think he wanted something from her, but he set her straight on that. She'd been surviving by offering sex to visiting Pharisine fellowship soldiers. Ujaran offered to pay the girl to meet a friend of his, reported the situation to Nevari, who would take care of getting her cleaned up, and see that the soldiers who had funded the girl's drug habit were properly disciplined. He gave her a few credits to thank her for being cooperative when he handed her off to one of Nevari's agents. Before he got back on the road, the woman he was handing the girl off to let him know Adiarc had a strawberry delivery earlier, and the delivery girl had made arrangements to stay with her. The women with the order were all strong telepaths. She must have sensed he wanted some time to himself. He'd see them both when he arrived tomorrow for his midday jog with Adiaxie. Hopefully Strawberry didn't have anything on her schedule prior to then. The guards could let her out if necessary. Samari. Devija Samari, your creature has been relocated to the Star Lounge per your request, the young Subterran woman said from the entrance to the botanical garden. Oleander's capital ship was enormous, and unusually luxurious for a warship. One of his primary houses, House Atom, oversaw Lamentic mating to prevent inbreeding within the great houses. If you were to equate breeding age males to livestock, Oleander would be the prize bull of House Atom. His ship was registered as the LHC, Indulgence, as well as the name he'd coined for it, the Overcompensation. They had decks dedicated to raising animals, growing crops, and even a simulated beach environment for swimming. The crew complement was a little shy of 1,000, all of them Terran women under the age of 40. Their uniforms were skin-tight environmental suits with collars designed by the Black Church. They worked like space helmets using mystrionics instead of technology. Each of the women wore a color that suited their tastes and complexion. Guests on the ship wore whatever they wanted, as long as there was no chance of being mistaken for a member of the crew. Samari had teased him about being surrounded by women, until he disproved her initial judgment. He knew them all by name, and a great deal about their personal lives. He was happy to flirt with any of them, as long as they initiated the flirtation. So far, they all seemed happy with the arrangement. He was the fleet admiral, but they ran all of the daily operations, as well as directing the rest of his fleet. Having been one of Ola's girls opened the door to positions of authority elsewhere in the Lamentic Empire. Oleander loved women, that was certainly true, but it was far more nuanced than she would have guessed. Her new body's memories of being the original Samari were limited. He'd instructed everyone to call her Devija, meaning twice born, to ensure nobody would treat her as if she were just her old self. She was a new person now, the merging of Kayla and Samari. She knew there were more slivers of Kayla out there, but Cyanide had warned her most of those included traumas that she may be better off without. "Thank you," Samari said. "I'd appreciate if you call him Louis." "My apologies, Devija. That was in the crew notes, but it slipped my mind. We have a large crew. Things tend to slip through the cracks during shift changes. Keeping your Louis chained to a pillar in the Star Lounge should prevent further confusion. The woman who had it relocated to the livestock area has been reprimanded and requests your forgiveness." "It's been resolved," Sam said. "I'll go check on him later. I don't know ship protocol. Do I dismiss you, or?" Saying that's all for now will suffice. Fleet Admiral Oleander has requested you join him in the command lounge when you're finished down here. Do you know if there's anything here that helps with cramps? "Off the vine," the woman said. "The octahedral blackberries at the end of the 7th row. Just peel the skin first, unless you like really bitter fruit." "Thank you," Sam smiled. "That's all for now." The woman smiled, bowed, and took her leave. Halfway through the public ceremony, Samari's new body had turned on her. Her old body didn't have a functional uterus. She hadn't had to deal with the discomfort of menstruation for months, but even back before consuming the mutation core, she'd never cramped this badly. She'd doubled over so quickly Cyan thought Sam had been shot. Hopefully, it wouldn't always be this bad. This body had been cryogenically preserved after the death of the original Samari. It might be worse because of her body's renewed life. She liked her new body, but right now it hated her. She had been so looking forward to some private time with Oleander, but that wasn't going to happen now. The berries did help a bit. Samari still felt like there was a knife lodged in her gut, but at least it didn't feel like it was being twisted anymore. The effect didn't last long, so she jammed a couple fists full of berries into her pocket. She was sticky, drippy, crampy, bloaty, and moody. Her body felt tired, heavy, and sluggish. They were waiting in line to go through the Stargate, so she expected she'd be adding nauseous, dizzy, and disoriented to the list. She stopped off at the bathroom to change her pad and liner before heading to the elevator. The best part of being on a ship crewed by so many women was the broad selection of feminine hygiene products to choose from. Samari scowled. She hoped her body's previous death was a factor. It looked like someone had butchered a small animal down there. She'd hate to think that much clotting was going to become her new normal. Once she was done, she headed for the elevator. After punching in her destination and popping another berry, she was on her way to the command lounge. She entered the destination without even looking it up. The original Sam had clearly been here before, and knew where to go without her being consciously aware of it. Maybe it was just muscle memory. She did have the impression that the residual memory of listening to Akia and Oleander in the next room, while masturbating, might have been on this ship somewhere. No, that had happened more than once. She scowled. Even the idea of becoming aroused disgusted her in her current state. The elevator changed direction 3 times before reaching its destination. Samari stepped into the room. There was an entire wall that provided a gorgeous view of space. The assorted couches and chairs were made from black wood with intricate gilded inlays and imperial red cushions. He could direct and monitor the entire ship from here through a direct communication line to the bridge and voice controls. There was a virtual display integrated into a large square floor panel. "Oleander, I'm sorry," Samari said as he started to stand. "The timing is terrible, but I started yesterday." "Started what?" he asked. "You know." Sam blushed. "Menstruating." He fake whispered. "Haley already told me. You mentioned to her you were cramping." "I understand. I plan to bring you to the ship clinic later. Getting on the shot should help with that in the future. It will lighten the flow and help keep you regular, if I understand correctly. We keep 3-month and 1-year birth control shots stocked in the ship clinic. It won't help this time, but it will save hassle later, unless you intend to become pregnant in the next few months, that is." "Definitely not," Sam scoffed. "Some of the girls suffer from dysmenorrhea. I could ask what they'd recommend." "I got what I could from your gardens, and the girl that I spoke to earlier directed me to some berries that help some," Sam said. She'd expected him to be upset or disappointed, but he only seemed concerned with her comfort. "I'll have someone bring up a heating pad for you. If you'd like a massage later, I'm sure I can arrange something. There's room enough over here for you on the lounge, but feel free to sit wherever you'd like. I promise it won't offend me," he said with an unexpected warmth. She'd been warned he had a talent for making a woman feel like the center of the universe until he'd gotten what he wanted from them. Regardless of his motives, it did feel nice. "I'm just going to sit here for now," she said as she walked over and sat in a large chair angled so she could see the Stargate outside, his seat, and the virtual display. "We've been holding position, letting other ships pass for a while," Oleander said. "We can leave at any time. I've just been waiting for you to pick a specific destination." "The station is inside the Dew Star Nebula," Samari said. "Skirt the edge of the slipstream, and you'll see it on the left a little past the Dew Star system. Actually, wait. Can I pick any destination?" "I don't see why not," Oleander grinned. "We may need to call ahead so we are not mistaken for an invading fleet. Just keep in mind, we're restricted to warp speed. Ships this mass can't move any faster without using a link, gate, or slipstream. If you wanted to go somewhere remote like Rallet Nu, or somewhere suicidal like a Mujan, the answer would be no." "Never mind," Sam blushed. "You're here to bring me home and help me reclaim my birthright, not so I can use you and your fleet to further my own agenda," Sam grumbled. "I just hope this cramping goes away in time for us to fool around before I go in for brain surgery." The elevator door opened. A woman strode into the room carrying a heating pad and a weighted blanket. She brought them to Sam and helped her get comfortable. Samari thanked her before she left. She was still uncomfortable, but the heat helped. Sam ate another berry for good measure. Tell me what this agenda is. I might want to help, Oleander smiled. I'm just starting a war of independence, Samari teased. Nothing interesting. They have to fight their own battles, but there have been a few setbacks. There's one problem I haven't solved. Maybe Tyrell has. There's a Jinnan colony that we want to provoke, so they chase the fleet to the location of the first major battle just to make more targets. The ship's Tyrell design should look like Jinnan on sensor scans. Once the defense fleets start shooting, they'll hit the Jinnans too, which will get pulled into the fight, or that's the idea. We just need a way to blow up the bioship at the center of the horde to get them stirred up. They can shoot down any ordnance I know of. I know a way, Oleander said with a sly grin. Aisha's people can cast a ritual spell called Comet Fall, but I can't see you enlisting her help. There are a few other options I can think of, but that's a conversation best had between my tech team and yours. I'd appreciate any help I can get, Sam said. Oh, while I think of it, how did things go with Eris? How should I put this? Oleander grinned playfully. Things were a bit strained at first. She was awfully tense for someone with all that enthusiasm. After I helped her loosen up a bit, we reached a solid understanding of each other. Not doing a thing for you? No, Samari frowned. I'm really not in the mood. Fair enough, Oleander laughed. We had fun. The final leg of the journey was unexpected. We rescued a lost kitty from a slaver. One of those small Karzan. Pygmy? Sam asked. That's the sort. I felt almost sorry for them when Eris insisted on docking with them, just so she could pet them. That sounds fun. I wish I could have seen the look on their face. I captured an image, if you're interested, Oleander offered. I could bring it up on the virtual display. Definitely, Samari said happily. The image was of Eris, her arms outstretched, pouncing on Tro whose hands were in between them, trying to fend off the leaping Lamentic. I know her, Samari gaped. Where was this? About a jump day coreward from Aspis. What was Tro doing up there? Sam wondered aloud. Almost getting captured by a slaver. We sent her off to safety with a pair of mercantile marine ships. She'll be fine. There are a surprising number of Karzan in that faction. Just bring me to my station. I need to find out what in the powers is going on. Tro shouldn't have been anywhere near that part of space, Samari raged. She's supposed to be controlling a comm relay on the opposite side of Corrales right now. Samari watched nervously as they moved into position to pass through the Stargate. Feeling any better? Oleander asked. Much. For now, at least, Sam said nervously. Just because Stargates used to make you feel ill doesn't mean it will affect the new you that way, Oleander said as he stood and started crossing the room. If you get too worked up about it, convinced it will adversely affect you, the stress may make you sick regardless. I'm going to sit down and distract you until we are through. I really don't want to. Hold hands and talk, Oleander smiled down at her. Listen to me telling you about the old Sam while getting to know the new, so I can get to know you better before you feel well enough for us to get to know each other's bodies better. Is there a bathroom up here? Samari asked. Right over there, Oleander pointed across the room. She slid out from under the heating pad and blanket, then ran off to the restroom to change her pad. She was nervous. She wanted to hurry back to the comforting warmth of the heating pad, but she kept imagining herself throwing up all over him. At least that would ruin the mood for both of them. Sam bit her bottom lip. What mood? She muttered to herself. She had terrible cramps and was all bloody and sticky. Why in the powers was she thinking about that? Was this the influence of the original Samari? She didn't want to feel him inside her, not with her body waging its rebellion against her, but she was still attracted to him. There were other things they could do that didn't involve that. She'd never done that when she was Kayla, but she could try. Lamentics don't do that, so he probably wouldn't know if she was good at it or not, unless... Had he been intimate with any of the girls in his crew? Probably. He was certainly a lot more experienced than her. Damn it, Sam, she cursed herself quietly as she grabbed more wipes. What's wrong with you? She cleaned up the best she could, then pulled her leggings back up. They were tight enough to defend against wandering hands, which eased her mind. He'd wanted Sam for a long time, and he'd just have to wait a little longer. And so would she. I contacted the clinic. They're sending someone up with some medicine that may help you, but unfortunately we need to restock on birth control shots, Oleander said as she stepped back into the room. He'd adjusted a reclining seat and relocated himself, the heating pad, and weighted blanket. But what if I get sick when we... He pointed toward the wall that displayed an external view. Everything looked different. They had passed through the gate while she was getting cleaned up. Samari sighed with relief. Never mind. Clarice will be here in a little while, Oleander said. Just lay down and let me help you get comfortable. We should arrive at Dew Star in a few hours. I'll instruct the helm to ask Tyrell to guide us in. Speaking of Tyrell, Samari said as she headed over and laid on the recliner, would it be possible to arrange a tour of the ship for him? A cyberpath on my ship? I don't know about that, Oleander said as he laid the heating pad on her stomach and waited for her to finish adjusting its position. Well, Samari said a little nervously. He's an older guy. Divorced, and I don't think he's had any female companionship in a long time. I was thinking maybe. Maybe what? Oleander sounded angry. Maybe someone on your crew would like him, Samari said a little defensively. I'm not proposing something weird. What kind of person do you think I am? I apologize, Oleander laughed softly. I'm a little overprotective of my crew. As long as he follows the most important rules, I'll permit it. Don't initiate flirtation. Don't touch anyone, unless they grant you explicit permission. Follow their instructions as you'd follow mine and, in his case, don't molest the ship systems. Thank you, Sam said happily as he covered her with the weighted blanket, for everything. While I was washing up, I was thinking, I'd like to do something to show my appreciation. Sex will have to wait, because yuck, but there's something I could do that I hope you'll like. I've never done it before, but I'd like to try. No, Oleander said sternly. But I want to, Samari insisted. You really don't remember being the old Samari, he sighed. She started to panic internally. Had she made a mistake? Had she ruined her chances with him? Devija Samari, he mused as he scooted forward and rested his hand on her shoulder. She could feel the warmth of soul touch flowing through her skin. There was more of her at first, but it fades more every day, Sam admitted. Sometimes I think my brain is incorporating parts of her personality into mine, and I know some of her memories are in there, but more that I just know things she knew. They don't feel like regular memories. It's hard to explain. I guess it's like childhood memories. They're just scattered fragments, not complete or robust. I'm probably not making any sense. The memories of when I was Kayla are the same way. Calm down, he soothed as he stroked her shoulder. Back when you were this Kayla person, I'm sure there are many things you never experienced, that Sam did, and the reverse is true as well. She opened her mouth to speak, but he silenced her with a kiss. Sam winced. He pulled away. She blushed and ate another berry. Let's see if I can jog one of Sam's memories, Oleander grinned mischievously. There was a grand gala you attended years ago. We are required to breed and have offspring as a responsibility to our houses and the empire. The action is often regimented, almost procedural in some cases. One of the Jalu women, Trista, I think they called her, not very attractive, and a rather pompous woman at that. She had a family-arranged mating with Xanth Boculi. He's a bit of a anyway. He was unable to rise to the occasion. Sam Mari offered to help by. Sam blushed brightly. Do you remember now? Oleander smiled playfully. I sucked him hard, then let him watch me dance while he was fucking her, she said, startled by the recollection. See, they're in there, Oleander smiled, just waiting to come to the surface. She smiled, feeling a bit reassured. Do you have any memories of having sex? Oleander asked. Conventional, not oral. For your own pleasure. Kayla was a virgin unless my shadow hid that from me too. Sam Mari shrugged. What about Sam? Oleander asked knowingly. No, Sam Mari said in surprise. Never. Akia wouldn't permit it, but I don't remember why. I don't really know the details, Oleander admitted. Sam's parents turned her over for training as a defender when she was very young. Akia made some sort of promise to them, which she kept. Regardless of what poor Sam wanted. I guess oral didn't count, Sam shrugged. Not that it matters now. She giggled then scowled at the discomfort. Are you okay? He asked. I just never expected to lose my virginity twice, Sam Mari teased. I didn't really want it the first time around. Lost is such a weird word to use. She couldn't imagine anyone wanting to find it again. Don't worry about that, he laughed. I have no plans to give it back once it's mine. Don't tease me like that, Sam Mari pouted. I know you're not the kind of guy that would be happy with a woman that enjoys watching, he quipped. She slapped him across the face. Don't you dare pull on my heartstrings like that. You're the one that put them in my hands, Oleander teased. What would you have me do with them? Just stop talking and kiss me again, Sam Mari demanded. Oleander was happy to comply. Waking up from her wild ride in the middle of a cozy people pile was a lot nicer than any alternative she could envision, but it was time to face reality. The problem with letting yourself dream is eventually you have to wake up. They said they needed help, but why her? Maury. I took care of it, she said as she took a seat at the command table. I'm not happy about it, but I don't see what else we could have done. Dizzy even invited her to participate in some religious thing down on the surface. I'm having a difficult time feeling sympathetic, Roan grumbled. There was no way Bobtail was going anywhere without her. She refused to get checked out, or go with the others. Ultimately, this is her own doing. I'm just relieved you came up with a way to deal with all that noise. We're lucky she had her own ship, Maury sighed. As long as we go in and check on them a few times, they should be fine in there. As long as hers is shorter than mine was, Wodow growled. Hopefully she'll be quick like you were. You never told us what Dizzy did to get you out of heat so fast, Roan said while eyeing Maury with suspicion. No, Maury snickered, and I never will. That reminds me, Wodow said. Have you decided if you're going to finish your transition? It's a big step, Maury shrugged. Never going into heat again sounds great, but I'm still not ready. I still feel like a guy on the inside. That's not going to change. Hormone therapy has been going fine, but I still have the option of having at least 1 litter until I trade in the last traces of my womanhood for a penis. Roan sat back in her chair. We wouldn't really be Delaric's daughters anymore if you do, so take your time. It's your body. We'll support you in whatever decision you make. Speak for yourself, Wodow laughed. If Maury comes back with a cock, I want to be the first to fuck her. I mean him. You know this isn't about sex, Maury insisted. It's about the person I've always felt like I was meant to be. I still want to be the one that helps you take it for a trial run, Wodow giggled. Just make sure they give you a good one. Says the woman that doesn't like sex, Roan scoffed. The problem isn't the sex, Wodow smirked. It's all the weirdness after it's over. Sometimes I feel like I'm the most normal person on this ship, Roan smiled. Wodow and Maury laughed. Roan crossed her arms and looked back and forth irritably, sighed, shook her head, and said, That's enough, you can stop now. I know. It wasn't my idea. It just happened that way. I didn't ask for it and I never wanted it. Sorry, Mom, Maury teased. Delaric only asked me to help raise you too, Roan grumbled. I still don't understand how that turned into mothering the entire crew. You were good at it, Wodow admitted. Wait, Roan said in obvious dismay. When did Bobtail go in for his last birth control shot? Maury shrugged. Beta said he's overdue, Wodow smirked. She was warned. We did what we could. It's not our fault if she refuses to listen. At least she'll stop screeching once her body thinks it's pregnant, whether she is or not. But what if she regrets? Maury began, but fell silent after seeing Wodow's expression change. Sorry. I didn't mean to bring up old memories. Well, let's all have a drink to it being over quickly, and hope that's the end of this mess, Roan sighed deeply. I'll get the hooch, Maury said as she hopped to her feet and ran upstairs. Carly. After Strawberry's arrival, Carly had given her a hot bath while massaging her with her tails. Afterwards, they'd had fun feeding each other berries, while talking about unimportant things. They shared Carly's dinner once it was delivered. Strawberry seemed to enjoy examining the delivery drone more than the food, but that wasn't too surprising. By the time they were done eating, Carly's new friend was exhausted, so they headed to bed. It was a pleasant, unusually normal-feeling evening. Carly was restless, unable to sleep. She laid for hours with Strawberry cuddled up alongside her. She caressed her sleeping body and played with her hair, while watching their time together slowly count down. Ujaran never arrived. He must be working, or took the evening off. Carly rested her hand on Strawberry's hip and squeezed gently while kissing her cheek. Strawberry stirred in her sleep. "You should go home soon," Carly whispered in her ear. Strawberry hugged her close, and muttered, "I'm comfy. I don't want to go." Carly took a deep breath and exhaled, "Just a little longer, but you can't stay. We're lucky they let us have this much time together." The skin dye was fading nicely, all traces of it should be gone in another day. They'd had a good laugh earlier. Strawberry hadn't realized all her stripes were natural. This had brought back a plethora of pleasant memories of Carly's first night with Cyanide, which was what probably led to her current restlessness. Strawberry had been so focused on sex the night they met. It was nice to have spent a good chunk of a day with her. It had been very intimate, without being at all sexual. Strawberry's hand slid down her right side, coming to rest on Carly's hip, where it remained, tenderly stroking the fine strip of fur that crested the top of her hip. She groggily muttered something inaudibly as her head came to rest between Carly's breasts. "I couldn't hear you," Carly whispered while running her fingers through the woman's long, pinkish-red hair. Strawberry made a faint little moaning sound and sighed happily then as she whispered, "I love you." "What? No." Carly's mind raced. She can't. Shouldn't. It's been 3 days. How? Was that even possible? It hadn't taken Carly much longer to call Cyan her Tejmare, but that involved soul touch. Maybe Strawberry meant something different. Maybe she was just dreaming. A cold weighty feeling grew deep within Carly's heart. She did like Strawberry, enjoyed having her as a friend and occasional sexual partner, and didn't want to hurt her. Love. What did she even mean by that? Syntholo loved Tyrell like a brother. Jareem loved her son. Kayla loved Tyrell like a father, and Kiryu and Nelfrey for their friendship. Would allowing herself to accept romantic love be a betrayal of her own? Carly didn't feel that way about Strawberry, not yet, and certainly not about Ujaran. But what if she did? What if she opened herself to the possibility? How would Cyan react? She rummaged through her own memories. Cyanide had talked to her about this sort of thing their second night together, the first night they had sex. The memories were jumbled, but the words were all Cyan's and Carly remembered them in the gently soothing voice of her Tejmare. "Listen closely to what I'm about to tell you. There will be others you do or will love. For me, that will never be a conflict. I hope it won't be one for you." Carly sighed with relief. Even the memory of Cyan could set her heart and mind at ease. "You should go now," Carly said as she kissed the top of Strawberry's head. "Otherwise they may not let you stay next time." Carly pitched her hip, rolling her onto her side. "I guess. If I have to." Strawberry grumbled. Carly leaned forward and kissed her quick, then leaned back, nodded, and said, "You do." Strawberry stretched, got up, and walked over to where Carly had left her pendant. Almost forgot, she winked and tapped the gemstone connected to its internal storage, for later, a memory from a friend. Carly sat up on the bed and waited while she called for the guards to let her out. Carly walked over to retrieve her pendant. There was a new image file. She fought back tears as she opened it. Her new friend may not know how to be sneaky, but Tyrell sure did. Shinji being beaten by Prask was the center point of the image, making her and Cyan rushing to her bedroom look less important to someone that didn't know what the real point was. She finally had a picture of her Tejmare to look at that wouldn't raise suspicion.